and he made all the window frames, door frame units, built the, and the litter of the mantel and there and everything, all the cabinets that we built in the shop.
They're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. Okay, I have another picture, and I don't know if we're getting ahead, but this...
Well, that's part of the lumber crew. That was my lumber
Okay,
crew.
we're getting ahead. We'll talk about that one later. Where were we, Bobby, when we... Just go ahead. Maybe we'll get into...
Well, after I got to $800, well, I grew my piece of building over the highway and piecemealed everything. Hartley Palmer's daddy had a truck. And when I was in Tech City, Callahan Construction Company put all this granite rock along the dike. And they had a little railroad run out there, and I was selling gasoline and oil to service the engine. Well, after the job was completed, they had all these railroad ties they wanted to sell. So they were selling for 10 cents a piece. So the ditch in front of the business was about 6 foot wide, and I had to put a culvert in there to get up to it. So I bought a bunch of these ties for 10 cents a piece, and Hartley Palmer and his daddy hauled them from Texas City for me for about $0.05 a piece. So that's how I got the culvert built in front of the place. Well, the power company had built a new power station in Texas City, and they had 100 bags of cement left. Well, cement those days come in a canvas bag, and the cement companies would give you $0.10 a piece for returning the bags. So I bought 100 bags of cement for 25 cents a bag, and then I got $0.10 credits for bag back, so I got 100 bags of cement for $15 on the driveways and stuff like that.
So you made some money on that?
Well, then everybody had to do what you had to do what you had to do. But I found out later that Mr. Noble had lost that note to that lady personally. After he died, well, before he died, I owed her about $250 yet. And when he died, well, I owed her about $150. I wanted to pay her. She says, well, I think you ought to just hold it a while and pay me more interest because I carried it so long for you. So, and after Mr. Noble died, well, she came over and wanted to settle it. I just paid her off. And that's how I got started back in business.
Back in business. So you were back then?
And he's the man that put me.
How nice.
Because my dad had already died, and I had no other means of getting any money.
So was the cabinet shop after the gas station?
Well, the cabinet shop was built in 43.
43. Okay, we're way ahead.
Way up ahead of that.
Yeah. Well, tell us about.
But then after I got started back in the business here, I got to go a little bit. Well, I broke all connection with Chevrolet. And I saw an ad in the paper one Sunday morning where Tennessee Motor Company was distributed for the sort of Plymouth automobiles and were looking for sub-dealers. So I went up there, I had a $5 bill. I went to Houston, signed the contract, sort of Plymouth automobiles. So I had to get a demonstrator in order to have something to show. So I went over to Mr. Noble and said, Mr. Noble, I've got a Plymouth sort of dealership. I need enough money to buy a demonstrator. He said, well, what's it going to cost? I said, $475. He said, well, you go get it and write a check on Texas National Bank. Check gets here before you do, I'll pay it.
People
So
certainly.
I got the car and I went over there, invoice, and he gave me a note. I paid him $25 a month for 6 months, and then I'd sell it, get another one. See, I had a family car and a demonstrator. And
How did that business go? And where was this business, Mr. Henckel?
this on Highway 6, down where the building is now, where the preachers got to
Yes.
clean us and
The
stuff.
building now.
I built that whole building. That
I
was
think
mine.
HISD's in there now. It's right on Highway
Yeah.
6. Yes.
I operated that as after I went into the lumber business in '39. I changed the name to the Henckel Motor and Lumber Company.
And is this a picture of that time, or no? Or this is
No,
still
this-
lumber
this-
company?
This is the lumber office.
Okay. I guess I don't have a picture with me of
I
that
got some
building.
in there.
We might just show it sometime. Okay. Ben,
So
how did you?
that went along pretty good. Business was prospering, and I had in 1940, then I built my service department. Built it on a piecemeal deal too. So then when Camp Wallace started, They started in November 1940. The engineers moved in, and business started, and the town was booming. People all over town, all day and night.
Did you sell a lot of gas during that time?
I was selling. See, I was the only gas station in town at that time on the highway. Shanza had over on. He was still over on the highway. So all these people that was working construction work out there, I'd sell the gasoline on credit for a week and then cash the check on Friday when they got paid. So on Friday morning, I'd have to go down to Moody Bank and get about $4,000 cash and cash all those payroll checks and collect the guys that owed me for gas. If I didn't do that, well, I wouldn't get paid.
Must have been a bookkeeping nightmare.
Well, Faye Meyer was working for me then.
She kept up with it?
Well, I did most of the bookkeeping, but she did the daily work. But when Camp Holmes was opened up, we opened the gas station at 4:45 in the morning, and we turned the lights off at 9 o'clock at night. We could work 7 days a week.
Well, I'm still a little confused, because this wasn't the same time as the D4 dealership, right, or the Plymouth dealership?
Yeah, I had the, well, you see, in 1940, when the war started, all the automobiles cut out. We couldn't get the more cars. Production stopped.
So you kind of let that one go.
We had to rely on repair work and gas stations, things like that. And I had to open the lumber business in '39, and I was running it from the automobile place. I was running it both places. So I had to man over the shed, take care of customers coming over there, wait on them.
When did the lumber company, when did you get into the lumber company?
1939.
Okay, and is this?
My dad had the lumber company. Horse.
Okay, I think we have a picture of that time. Is that right, Mr.
That's
Henckel?
my mother and me. That's when I opened the lumber office, built a new lumber office in 1952.
That's the opening day?
That's the opening day of the lumber office.
Is this another picture of it? I think this might be.
Yeah, that's the inside, opening day. And two of those men there were officers from the Woody National Bank in
Can you tell me who all these people are? Who's the lady over here on?
Well, that's Faye.
Fame?
This is Gilbert's, Bill Johnson's dad-in-law, Mr. Shield.
Okay.
This is I.J. Jurka. Those two are Woody Bank officers. They came
Okay,
up
that's Faye. And some of these gentlemen are Woody
Bank officers.
Okay.
They financed the building for me, so they come up to see what they're financing.
And this building's located where, Mr. Henckel?
That's on 3rd Street and between North Railroad and Wallace.
And how long did you run that business?
Until I sold it in 1992.
And what's going on with that business now?
Dickie Pretz bought it, and he's enlarged the whole lot. He tore down the old shed and built all that new stuff, enlarged it considerably.
Did, just tell us something about the lumber business, some of your memories there.
The lumber business was a real fascinating business. It was a fast business, highly competitive, and after the war, there's everybody that had any land, the farmers and the cattlemen, that turned into subdivisions. And there's all out of Greenwood and Wood Acres and Oak Cross Trail.
Who built that subdivision in Greenwood?
Some fellows from Texas City, I don't remember the names of them, there's 3 or 4 of them involved in it. And then Dennis Richard developed Wood Acres, and the Gaudis developed Oak Ridge over here. And Jack Tackroyd developed Tackroyd Edition.
And then the Latimers did?
And Latimer's developed down here.
So this was a good time for the lumber business?
Oh, yeah. We was busy, just busy. We'd get a truck of lumber a week, 20,000 feet of lumber on a truck a week. We used to ship in boxcars, then they start shipping trucks.
And this was after the war. Did Hitchcock start growing at that time, or?
Yes, that's when Hitchcock started booming. All the young people was getting down to the Army while they was building, so they could get a GI loan or an FHA loan. But we had a problem along in 1943, 44 on getting financing. we didn't have a sanitary sewer or city water or anything like that. So I had to do something to get finances for people who want to build new homes. So I set up a meeting with Mr. Satterfield. He was superintendent of FHA in Houston, come down to a Chamber of Commerce deal. We got him down here, and first thing he told us, he said, I don't care what you tell me, I'm not going to finance anything with a septic tank or a private well. Well, that put us completely out of the picture. So then I went over to see Walter Hall. I said, Walter, how do you create a water and sewer district? He said, well, you call Lewis Pauls and tell him to come up to a meeting and let him take it from there. So I called Lewis and made an appointment with him in the Chamber of Commerce, met over at Jelly Mills underneath the palm tree at nighttime. We didn't have moonlight, we were sitting there in moonlight talking about creating a water district.
So that's the present site of the Hitchcock Library.
That's where the library is now. So we got the water district created. We voted $300 worth of bonds. We could only sell $225,000 because that's all the valuation we had at American National bought them. So we started out with the contract for water lines. Well, we made a deal with Santa Fe. They had this well right by the crossing that they weren't using. They had the little tanks that you tore down and brought across the street. So we leased that water tank and a well for $500 a month. And then we didn't have a sewer plant. Well, we started the water lines and put the sewer lines in, but we didn't have a sewer plant. So we got a call one morning that the pump base was being dismantled, and then we could get the utilities out there for $1. They asked me though. But the sewer plant had 30 acres of land, and we'd have to pay $30,000 to get the sewer plant. Well, we didn't have any money. We had $75,000 of bonds we couldn't sell. Bill Radbar Sr. was president. Walter Ganand was vice president. Cecil was secretary. I was treasurer. And Luke Shanzer was voted the first director. When Luke died, and Gordon Ladd was appointed.
This is the water district, right?
This water district. So we went over and called Walter again. And Walter had a good problem again. Come on over. So we went over there on a Saturday afternoon. And we put up a plan on the table. Said, well, look, we got 10 days to raise $30,000 to get this sewer plant. He showed us a note. He said, you 5 guys signed it. Here's your check. We 5 signed a personal note for $30,000 to work the Walter Hall, where the Little League ballpark is out there, that sewer plant's right there. So that's how we got into this water and sewer business. And then we could get FHI financing and the GI financing and the regular finance companies. They got interested too. Then after we had city water and sewer.
So what impact did all this have on Hitchcock? Do you think this?
Well, it's happened from a town of about 500-600 people to 106,000 people. That's what did Hitchcock.
Before 1940, there were no subdivisions. Hitchcock was big. Can you describe the area, the town itself, before 1940?
Well, from about 519 Highway to Cow Gully, that was about the business section. And the residents were all scattered around. They were mostly original farmers of anywhere from 10 to 50 acres of land. And they were all cut up, most of them cut up into subdivisions. Out to on 2nd Street where Dell area is, that used to be a farm where elderly folks lived. That was a farm, and on Kim's and all out, Crossroads, all that bunch out there with farmers.
And where did the Italian Americans, can you tell, the Italians that settled in Hitchcock?
The Italians were farmers.
How did they get here?
We had a few Italian farmers here, and Joe Prino was a pretty prosperous farmer and a pretty nice fellow. And he'd go back to Italy about every 2 or 3 years, and he'd bring 2 or 3 families back with him. So along from about 1905 up to 1920, we were in need of more farmers here. And that's when the Italians had people start coming in.
And did you tell me at one time that people sponsored them to come? How did that work?
Well, they'd get here, my pre-nup bring them here. Now, my dad came over, immigrants came over, then all the thing they could bring with them would be a bundle of clothes or something like that. And most of them had a trunk or a bundle of clothes when they hit the United States. Well, they'd come to Hitchcock and they'd get a piece of ground. Somebody had a piece of ground, would give it to them on the rent it to them or working on shares or something like that. My dad was furnishing seed, fertilizer. If they needed a team, he'd buy up a team of horses or mules or something, and farming tools, imports. If they needed a house, they'd give them lumber. The grocery stores did the same thing. They'd give them groceries on credit. They didn't have any money. Well, when the crops come in, we'd start taking it. The Ganado family, or early Italian family in Hitchcock, the family moved back to Italy before the Second World War, and one boy, John, stayed here. Well, he took the name of John Gino. When he went into the army, that was his name, well, his brother, and all went back. Well, Andrew was in the Italian army, and John was in the American army during the Second World War. And after the war was over, Mr. Prino went back to Italy, and the Ganado bunch and the Tibaldis, all the Ganados and Tibaldi, all kinfolks. Mrs. Tibaldi and Mrs. Ganado and Mrs. John Gino's wife, they were all sisters. So they all came over here together. And Angelo Cortese, he came over before the war, and he married after the war, and he lives up there on the same street as the Tibaldis they were.
Do you know where in Italy they came from? What city in Italy or anything?
They came from the northern part. Most of the Italians in Hitchcock came from northern Italy, up around Malaya. Up in the Santa Fe, they're mostly Sicilians up there. They come from down the lower part and around the boot. So
what about the Matranga family? Where did the Matrangas come from?
Matrangas came from Leavenworth, Kansas. They came to Hitchcock by 1927. A whole bunch of them, about 24 Italians met the train as they got off, and the whole Italian family, the whole Matranga family got off right there by the depot.
Where the depot, the Hitchcock depot is, yeah.
They came in by 1927.
And the Shiro family?
Shiro family came here early. Old man Charlie Shiro, old man Bob Dempster, were an old man Arthur Walker were the three first employees my daddy had. And later Shiro opened a grocery store.
Where was that located, Mr.
It's right there where my lumber office was. That's where he opened. And then later he moved and built over on the corner of South Railroad and 2nd Street. Well, right there with that corner, I'll back up a little bit here to Hitchcock. Back in the early 1890s, you had a land boom. People were coming here from the north, and they had regular trains, special trains bringing them here. And the Tackard brothers built a 3-story hotel right on the corner of 2nd Street and South Railroad. And they'd bring these people here and entertain them and dine them, and the show they'd come here in March and April. Well, it was still snowed in up in the Midwest, Central Mid. And the grass would be green here, and then you come here and buy this land, and plant your pear trees and orange trees, and you come back for about 6, 7 years, and you get your crop. Well, they came back in 6, 7 years, and they had grass, weeds about 6 foot high, and the trees all dead. So they just went back. A lot of people just left the land, never come back, pay taxes, nothing on it. And a lot of this land, especially up around Alphaville and Santa Fe, was taken just in squatting law. See, Texas had a squatter's law. You squat on a piece of property for 10 years and go get somebody to give you a quick claim deed to it, and go down and file on it. If nobody claims it at the same time, you can.
So these people actually bought land? And
they bought land, paid down on it, you see, and never came back. When they came back, well, it was nothing but grass and weeds and ruins. So they just let it go.
So